Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about Survivor players I'd like to see on The Traitors. If you haven't seen it, The Traitors is a fantastic show on Peacock, wherein a group of reality all-stars from the CBS reality suite, Bravo, and various other shows play the largest scale version of Mafia ever. The currently airing Season 2 doubled down on recruiting nothing less than a reality fan's dream cast. Sandra and Parvati from Survivor, Dan and Janelle from Big Brother, Peppermint from Drag Race, CT and Bananas from The Challenge. More housewives than you can count. Plus, this guy from UK Parliament? Kevin from Bling Empire? Alright. To recap the rules briefly, a small group of players are anonymously selected to be traitors and must secretly work together to eliminate the faithful. Each night, the traitors secretly come to a consensus and murder a faithful who is removed from the game. And with that information, the faithful then come together the following evening to, ideally, vote out a traitor. Faithful's goal is to eliminate all the traitors before the end of the game. The traitor's goal is to get to the end hidden amongst the faithful. Should any traitors remain at the end of the game, they collect all the prize money, leaving the faithful with nothing. It's a great game for reality competition veterans because it's not as simple as just finding and eliminating traitors. You also need to build alliances and to play the social game so that you can convince others to eliminate players of your choosing, or so you have backup when you're targeted. Frankly, the show is better than it has any right to be. But from the picturesque setting, cozy castle full of mystery, rampant paranoia, impeccably dressed host, Alan Cumming doing what appears to be an exaggerated impression of himself, and amazing cast, the show just works. Relevant to this channel, Cirie and Stephanie both played in Season 1, and Sandra and Parvati are playing in Season 2. So today, I thought it would be fun to look at what other Survivor legends I'd like to see on the show in the future. And just for fun, I'll be listing whether I'd like to see them as faithful or traitor, and how long I think they'd last. So sharpen your knives, grab your poisoned chalice, and meet me in Traitor Tower as we take a look at 5 Survivor players I want to see on The Traitors. At number 5 is Maryann, winner of Survivor 42. I think she'd be good in either role, but Maryann would be an incredibly fun traitor on this show. She'd be so good at the traitor strategy, knowing who to murder to sow the maximum amount of paranoia and distrust in the most amount of people. She'd also be in this fun spot where her sweet personality and youthful appearance would have some people believing she's simply too wholesome to be a traitor, but her undoubtedly big reactions to banishments could be viewed as insincere, which could put a target on her back. If you're also not on her same personality wavelength, she can come across as annoying. So she'd just be in this really interesting spot where she's able to play the strategy, but her personality could get in her own way. I actually think Maryann would be at the most risk early on when the banishments are more based on personality clashes than any real evidence. But I think it would be a pretty tough sell for anyone to seriously try to pitch Maryann as a traitor in the early game. I think she'd probably try to play a quieter game early on based more on coalition building and earning trust than throwing out names, and her game would slowly gather steam until she's one of the more influential people at the round table. Her ultimate fate? Thrown under the bus by her fellow traitors and banished in the late game. At number 4 is Carolyn from Survivor 44. No way Carolyn would have the poker face to be a traitor, so I'm just gonna go faithful on this one. Carolyn's impulsivity and unapologetically emotional and eccentric personality would be such a good wrench to throw into the game. I think Carolyn would be in this really fun spot where she's actually quite good at figuring out who the traitors are, but she just wouldn't have the social capital to convince anyone that her ideas are correct, and would in fact probably be consistently in the crosshairs as a target. Like, I'm just picturing her performance in the challenges, how she manages to fold under pressure in the most bizarre ways possible, and how people who haven't seen her Survivor season would wonder if she's even for real. No way she ever gets murdered, she's way too juicy a shield, but I do think her time would be limited at the round table, and she probably tops out at a mid-game banishment. At number 3 is Tyson, winner of Survivor Blood vs. Water. If there were ever a player made for this game, it's Tyson. Tyson would succeed as either faithful or traitor. He's manipulative, convincing, charming, and good at being the loudest voice in the room. He'd be great in the challenges too, as long as there's no Sudoku. It's tempting to put Tyson as a traitor because he's such an obvious choice, but I think it would be more interesting to see him play as a faithful. Considering the Survivor talent the Traitors has been recruiting lately, I'd actually be pretty surprised if we don't see Tyson on in the near future. He's clearly a perfect fit and is the next natural choice for the show. I think Tyson would be able to pretty successfully get his targets out of the game, while also building and maintaining strong alliances without having to play too much defense. I do think there's an outside chance he gets murdered early on, but he'd also be such a great shield for them because he's such a big personality. Probably an endgame murder, but he gets at least one traitor out of the game. At number 2 is Angelina from Survivor David vs. Goliath. It's hard to think of a Survivor player who better exemplifies the Traitors' creative cocktail of elegance and camp better than Angelina. Like, she threads this needle so perfectly, I'd be surprised if she isn't contacted to play in the next few seasons. She can play aggressively like the reality competition stars, but also would more than hold her own against the petty drama of the Bravo side of the mansion. It's a match made so high in heaven, you'd need a ladder to get there. I think Angelina would probably be more successful as a faithful, but I think it would be far more interesting to see her as a traitor. Angelina wields even the faintest whiff of power with an often malicious recklessness that makes her reality gold. She came across as insincere to a lot of her tribe mates on Survivor, but seemed oblivious to it, and she was obsessed with getting credit for even the most minor of moves. These are all compliments, by the way. As a traitor, I just don't think Angelina would be able to help herself and would take big and potentially obvious or revealing swings early. I'll be honest, I think she'd prove a liability to the other traitors sooner than later, and they'd probably chuck her under the bus at the earliest opportunity. Regardless, whether she's an early boot or a late one, she'd be incredible TV. Plus, she'd have a really good jacket. At number 1 is King George from Australian Survivor. Screw the Australian version of Traitors. Annabelle and Luke aside, they were great. Put King George on the US version. George would simply be too big of a get to not have as a traitor, and unlike other huge names, I think his international status would help shield him early on from being targeted by default. Not sure how many Real Housewives or Bachelor stars are installing a VPN to watch 4 hours of Australian Survivor a week. Cirie set the traitor bar high in Season 1, but if anyone could play a game to match it, it's George. His politicking is second to none, his mind for the strategic side of the game is fantastic, he's calm under pressure, he doesn't take the game personally, he's great at throwing others under the bus when he needs to, and his challenge game is, well, non-existent. No one's perfect. In the American version, Cirie set the precedent for how well a traitor can play. Her cast is still salty about the spanking she gave them a year later. They went to Survivor royalty for their Season 1 traitor, they went to Big Brother royalty for their Season 2 traitor, and now it's time to bring King George to America. His fate convinces the faithful to banish the other traitor at the end and wins the whole thing. Got nothing else for you. What Survivor players do you want to see on the Traitors? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, don't get idled out.